Good. Wishing everybody wishing Leslie happy birthday. And let's take a deep breath. One more, scooping up energy from the earth, bringing energy overhead, grabbing energy from the heavens, pulling it down. Slowly feel the force, letting it go. Okay. Let's draw up, hands straight out, turn, form a ball and open and close. Okay. Bring the hands in, fold them in, pulling into the chest, breathing in, exhaling, pushing out, expand out, all the way back, bring your arms out, extending them all the way back on the horizontal plane, pushing forward slowly, exhaling, relax your shoulders, and continue in, breathe in, push out, breathe out. Stretch all the way back. Inhale, exhale, collapse. Bring it in, full. Push out, empty. Stretch, full. Collapse, empty. Wind up. Unwind. Stretch. Relax. Take the ball, turn it over. Turn it over. Open and close. And come down. Good. All right. Let's do the eight treasures or the 8 brocades. We're sitting up straight. Relax the shoulders. Tuck the chin in. Relax. Pull the shoulders over. Collapse the shoulders just a little bit, hollowing the chest. That helps relax. Okay. Now we're ready to begin. Wise owl looks back, turn, look back to one side and the other. Stretch as far as you can. Hold it. To the other side, hold it. Breathing in as we stretch, breathing out as we come to the center, and breathing in to the other side. And relax. Take a closing breath. Holding up heaven and earth. Pushing up. Coming back to holding the energy ball. Rotating the hands in opposite directions, pushing up and down. Okay. Come back holding the ball, open and close. We bring the hands up under the chin, fingers pointing toward each other, palms up. Stretch. Rotate down and out and up. Push up. Go out and in. So you're forming a ball. So you're describing a ball. You're going down and out and up. Like a shell, half shell. Come back. Good. Up. Good. Good. As far as you can. Breathe in. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay. Come down and relax. Make two fists. Bring the fists, heart of the fist up, elbows back, fists at your waist. Okay. Bring the palms out, touching your forearms together, crunch. And when you do this, your fists are going to turn and rotate. The right fist is going to rotate counterclockwise. The left fist is going to rotate clockwise. And you rotate the hands away from each other and out, and make this shape with your hand. So finger up, thumb out, the last three fingers of your hand folded in. As you go out, you should start to make this change in your position of your fingers, and push out and look at your finger, right through your finger as you pull back like you're stretching a bow. And look through your finger and come back in. Down. Ready position. To the other side. Forearms together. Twist. Rotate the hands away from each other. Pull with your right fist. Look through the finger of the left hand. Should look like this. Come down. Ready position. Hold arms across each other. Push and pull. Down. Close. Ready position. Bring the hands up. Rotate the hands out or fists out. Look to the left. Bring the hands down. And one more to the other side. Ready position. Forearms together. Twist the palms and rotate the palms and forearms around. Look to the right through the finger. Pull, bend the bow. Come down. Closing breath. Wag the tail, shake the head. Put your hands on your hips. Shift to the right or the left, either way. go one side to the other. Okay, closing breath. All right. Punch and stare glaringly. We're going to, again, get in the ready position. Punch out slowly to the diagonal, 45 degrees. So it's 45 degrees to the right and 45 degrees up from the horizon. Arms straight, stretch. We want to feel like we're pulling and back with the left hand or the right, depending on which hand you're punching with. And you want to push out and stare like that fist. Excuse me. Really stretch. Stretch the arms, stretch your chest. Think of this, put your feet on the ground. Think of this as an isometric exercise. This is going to greatly strengthen your tendons and your muscles and stretch your joints. That's what we're trying to do here. So this seems like a silly exercise, but it's actually, I think, one of the most important ones. For a long time when I was doing this, I thought this was a kind of silly one. And I kind of did it anyway, but there's a lot of value in this. And slowly come back, and you can feel everything kind of relaxing back to its normal state. Now the other side. Stare, stretch, pull. Gently relax, come back. Push out, hard, pull in, stare. Come back. The other side. Come back. Open your hands, take a deep closing breath, up and down, and relax. Okay. Next exercise, we're going to put your fingers together, clasp your fingers together, and we're going to push out, extending the legs. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but what I'm going to do is I'm doing this basically. If you can't move your feet, it's okay. Move your torso down. You can do it two ways. Or you can put your feet up on an object like another chair. I don't have one here, but I'm just going to show you. And then try to reach over and touch your toes. So if I had this chair here, I put my feet up on them, I'd be doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then hold it. come back. And closing breath. That's just reaching over, touching your toes. And finally, if you can, use your feet. Pick your heels up and smack them down. If you don't have the use of your feet, scrunch over to your middle of your chair and slap down to the ground through the chair with your hands. Okay, good. So I want to talk a little bit more about the subject of the 6 harmonies. So there are 3 internal harmonies and 3 external harmonies. And I've talked a lot more about the internal harmonies because I think they're actually in some ways more important. But and when I think about it, it's hard, you really can't compartmentalize in that way, you know, that because the 3 external harmonies harmonize with the internal harmonies. So, you know, in this system, nothing stands alone. Everything is fully integrated. So if you look at the internal, the 3 internal harmonies, we've been over this a number of times. You have the spirit, Shen, you have the mind, Yi, and the other translation for the mind is intention. Yi also means intention, I believe, in Chinese. And then finally, you have the body, and the body is symbolized by Qi, or energy. And the harmonization process, it flows actually in both directions, but it starts from the spirit. Now, the spirit is associated classically in this system, is associated with emotions. Even though we form emotions using the mind, the spirit is and emotions are considered to be synonymous. The mind forms intentions, and the intention generates energy, you know, in the body. It manifests as energy in the body. And then the energy in the body is then harnessed and used to produce an effect, which is usually characterized as a force because Tai Chi is a martial art. And last week I mentioned that really the function, at least in my mind, I haven't read about this, but I kind of synthesized this on my own, and I don't know that too many people would object to this, looking at it this way, is that Qigong, and even Tai Chi, because Tai Chi evolved from Qigong, Qigong is a way of reversing that pathway. And if we reverse that pathway from the body, Qi, we're doing exercises to generate energy, and that energy then moves up the hierarchy to the mind, and it energizes the mind, allowing the mind to be more creative and to create more intentions, more thoughts that hopefully are positive in nature. And that stimulates positively affects the Shen, or the spirit. So by doing the work of Qigong, we elevate the spirit by going back up that pathway. So this pathway is in a sense reversible. So now let's look at the other side of the external harmonies. So as I said, there are 3, and they all have to do with posture. And so you're wondering, well, how can I connect postures with the internal harmonies? So how can you connect posture, the way you hold yourself, with this flow from the back and forth between the spirit and the body? And I think there is a connection. I think the connection is more subtle, but it's still very strong and important, because how you hold yourself has a profound effect, influence on how you think and how you feel and your energy state. All right. So you see people that are depressed, they are not very often standing up straight, raising their crown, right? Usually they're like this, they're slumped over and in that kind of depressed posture, they call it, right? And again, the pathway is reversible. So even if you're not organically depressed, if your posture is bad and you walk around like this all the time, that influences the state of your mind and state of your spirit and your state of your energy. Okay, so often the external harmonies are thought to be separate from the internal harmonies, the three internal harmonies, but they're really synergistic and important. And that's why when we do Tai Chi, we do these exercises, we have to pay attention to posture. And not only that, in a more practical sense, how we hold ourselves ties into the martial applications and the ability that we have to use Tai Chi to defend ourselves. Because if the posture isn't right, we become vulnerable. And so that's what we're going to explore in a little bit more detail right now. We're going to talk about posture, and we're going to talk about how posture is used to improve balance and to allow us to produce greater force with less effort, and also to make ourselves less vulnerable to attack, or less vulnerable to falling over, okay, i.e. increasing balance. And so what are the three external harmonies? So the most important one is shoulders over waist. You can also think of it in terms of head over waist. But if we look at it if we just remember to keep the head erect, then we're looking at really establishing the connection between the shoulders and the waist. And so what that means is, so you might think of these as rules for how to hold your body when you're doing Tai Chi, no matter which of the forms you're doing. These are sort of principles or rules that you need to apply to make, or to be aware of, to make the system work. So let's think about it in terms of how it would be violated. So if I'm forced to keep my job is to keep my shoulders over my waist, all right? If I do this, what happens? The shoulders are not over the waist. All right, so leaning over is either this way or this way, or this way or this way, violates that principle. And it makes sense, because if you're bent over in any one of those directions, you're outside of your center of gravity, and it makes it very easy for somebody to take advantage of you, because you basically uprooted yourself. You've destroyed your posture, and it makes it easy for somebody to basically pull you over in the direction you're leaning. And it's very difficult to recover from that. Somebody who's skilled in the art will see that immediately and take and use advantage to that. And at the same time, if we're walking, moving, and while we're walking, and we're bent over like that, center of gravity is not aligned through the core, and so it makes it much more easier to fall or to trip on something. So there's a lot of value to adhering to that principle of keeping the shoulders over the waist. Now, the second law, the second harmony, is harmonizing the elbows and the knees. And so you're thinking, well, what does that mean? If you're walking, it's a little hard to demonstrate, you know, without all of us doing it. But when you're walking, usually it's counterlateral, right? If I take a step with my left foot, my right arm comes up like this. So I'm basically doing this as I'm walking. I may be not making this big move, but I'm doing kind of this kind of thing. Notice that the orientation of my elbow and my knee. If I walk like this, my knee isn't lined up with my elbow, and it's putting a lot of pressure on my back. And obviously it's ridiculous, right, to walk like this, because not only is it uncomfortable, but if I happen to encounter something, I'm going to fall over. By the same token, if I walk like this, leaning back or too upright, right, my knee's out here, my elbow's here. Okay, so there's a lot of examples of reasons why you want to maintain your elbows over your knees. I'm going to give you another example of a movement in the set, which is we do calling block push, right? Now, I don't care whether you're sitting or standing. If I want to push something, let's see if I can demonstrate this. This is pretty cool. If I want to push something, I'm going to get down and use the ground. I'm going to get in this position, use the ground, and I'm going to push something like this, pushing through the ground up to my body and out. All right. Now, if I do this, notice my elbows, they're not over my knees. Once that goes down, if I'm pushing against somebody, if they just drop back, I'm going to fall over. So I basically defeated myself. If I can push like this and stay in that position, I'm not vulnerable. I'm totally centered. At the same time, the harmonization of the shoulders and the waist are intact. So you see, this is a very stable position, using the ground path to push, keeping the elbows over the knees and the shoulders over the waist. So we don't want to do this. We want to do this. All right. Now, I don't know if you guys have a table in front of you, but I would like you to do this exercise. If you can move to a place where there's a table and you can just listen to me, or if there's a table in front of you, this is a really interesting exercise, and I practiced this morning for this class. I've never done it before. Now, it's going to depend on how heavy your chair is and how big your table is. So you're going to have to kind of feel what I'm talking about. But if I try to push this table away from me and I lean like this, eventually my chair's going to go back, right? So I'm pushing against here, but my chair is going back in the other direction. So that's not very effective, is it? If I try pushing this table and I sit up straight and don't lean, and I press down with my butt, with my whole body, if I imagine I'm pressing down into the ground, connecting with the ground with my feet, I can move the table without moving my chair. What that proves is that I'm using the ground. So I weigh 120 pounds, 124 pounds. If I try to move something with just my body, I can apply 120 pounds or approximately that, and that's about it, maybe not even that. But if I use the ground, I can use the energy, or if you will, the weight of the ground to add to my body weight to make that force much more effective. And you can get a feeling for that if you try to push something and basically just push and lean over versus sitting up straight and using the ground path. Okay, so and I think that this exercise helps demonstrate the harmony between between the two principles: shoulders over waist and elbows over knees. And the third one is hands over feet. At any time that we extend the hands beyond the feet, puts us in a vulnerable position. And if you look at a lot of the moves in Tai Chi, if they were done standing, even when we do them sitting, we're sitting and we're pushing out. I'm not sitting now, but you'd be pushing out to the feet, to your feet. Can you guys sit up straight and push out? All right. Your hands don't go beyond your feet. If they do, what happens? You start leaning. And then you start violating that first principle of shoulders over waist. And that's why I say the first principle of shoulders over waist kind of takes care of everything. If you get that down, if that's all you need to do is remember shoulders over waist, which essentially means sitting up straight or standing up straight, then the other harmonies, hands over feet, elbows over knees, kind of fall into place automatically. So shoulders over waist or head over waist is sort of the major controlling principle for all three of them. If I were going to push somebody using whether I use yang style or Chen style, I'll do both. Chen style would be like this. I don't know if you can see that, but my hands are directly over my foot. My foot is pointed straight. My hands are on both sides of my foot. My back leg is at 45 degrees. This is called a equatorial stance. Why is it equatorial? Equatorial implies that it's a tripod with 3 different legs. I only have 2 legs. Not really. I have my toes and my heel and my front foot. Those basically 3 points, right? Whereas if I had my foot straight, my front foot straight, my back leg foot straight, I'd have really only 2 points. If I spread the weight out between the toes and the heel by turning the back foot 45 degrees, the front foot is straight, I'm in a very, very stable tripodal position called an equatorial stance, also known as prime meridian. And if I push, I'm going to push into the ground. And if you recall, in our set, we push down and up, right? We do colon block, push down and up. That allows me to use even more of the ground. It adds another, I don't know, 10, 20, 100 pounds into this force. But the point is, and I'm trying to make here, is that I'm not pushing past that foot, because if I did, that puts me in an unstable position and I'm uprooted. If we do yang style, instead of pushing into a using this prime meridian stance, which is a very Chen-like style, it's kind of difficult to do. I'm going to be using a bow and arrow stance, which is this stance here, back leg straight, front leg bent, and I'm pushing out. Once again, I'm not going to push out past that front foot, because if I do, I violate shoulders over hips. And you're asking, well, so what? Well, so what? I'm leaning, right? And if you go ahead and try that and lean, you're gonna find that you're putting a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on your back, and you're in a very unstable position. It's very hard. If you take your own head and pull it down, it's very easy to do. It's much harder to do when you're lined up through your core. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? All right, great. Okay, so it doesn't matter. I did it standing up because it's easier to comprehend, to visualize these concepts. But if you're sitting down, it's exactly the same thing. There are times when we want to push something sitting down, and if we do it, we bend over, we're going to hurt our backs. All right. So the main thing is to try to sit up straight and tuck your chin and raise the crown. All right. So that's enough about that. I think I've kind of maybe gone into more detail than I wanted to, but I think these fundamentals are really important, because once you grasp them, and you get a real, when you can't understand something unless you feel something. That's been my philosophy all my life. If you can't feel it, you can't understand it. If you can't feel it, you have a lot of knowledge, it's intellectual knowledge, but if you don't feel what you're talking about, you really don't know anything. It doesn't matter whether it's nuclear physics, biology, molecular biology, music, dance, anything. You have to feel something in order to really understand either the concept or the process. Same in Tai Chi. So all of these things we're talking about should help you in your practice, should help you feel what's going on when you do the form. And that is going to energize the inner, the three inner harmonies.
I have a question, Ralph. So when you talk about feel, are you talking just emotionally or just a palpable, tactile, physical thing, or is it the combination?
Well, when I use the term feel, I mean emotional.
Okay.
That doesn't exclude tactile, phenomena, because a person that doesn't have their sight, touching is really important to reaching out into the world and understanding things and communicating, right? So it's hard to kind of completely separate the two. I guess the answer is sometimes. All right, any other comments? I mean, this is fertile stuff for, this is like compost, and it's going to make it help you grow, and it should elicit some thoughts, some feelings, emotions, and I invite you to share your experiences or your connection with this or disconnection with it. Maybe this doesn't make sense. You might have some questions, or maybe you want to challenge some of this stuff. A lot of what I talk about, I don't read about. I kind of comes out of my practice. So if anyone there in the group here wants to make a contribution or comment about any of this, I know Chad is just probably chomping at the bit to say something, or not. But anyway, I hope it's helpful. I hope I haven't wasted your time talking about it. Some of this stuff will just creep in, and that's great. It creeps in and out of my head all the time. All right, so let's move on if there aren't any comments or any questions about this. So what we've covered are the 3 internal harmonies and 3 external harmonies. And I think the important thing is that they're not isolated. They're all connected. And if you take 3 things and add 3 things to them, you have 9 things. And I looked it up today. There are 24,112, I think, combinations of 9 things. So, I mean, this is really pretty powerful stuff. I guess you could argue that, that there are over 24,000 connections with 9 things, I mean, and, if you want to go through and do the permutations, you probably drive yourself crazy. But yeah, so it's very simple, but it can get very complicated. And fortunately, we don't have to dissect it mentally. We're just using this stuff. And doing Tai Chi is helping us make these connections. Emotionally, physically, if not intellectually. So let's move on. So we're going to move through our set, the Sun Style set, and we're going to get to past what what I'm doing is drilling down each of the forms in some detail and going into discussion about some applications. And the last time we were doing the 2 movements, which are deflection prior to parry and punch. I think that's where we left off. I think we talked a lot about playing the lute. We talked about applications, and then we got into deflection, and we're at parry and punch. And I think the important thing to remember in and play the lute is that it's not, none of these movements are linear. They're all elliptical, I don't know how the word, or circular. So an ellipse is just a special kind of circle. Really, it's a squeezed circle, but it's still a circle. When we play the lute, we're reaching out and grabbing two things this way rather than reaching out and grabbing them this way, because if we grab it this way, we have a better chance of connecting with the thing we're grabbing, right? If you reach out linearly and try to grab something, whether it's a candlestick or whatever, it's a lot easier to reach around here and to reach around here to make contact than to try to do it from a sagittal position. Hope that makes sense. And so as you play the lute, we're doing it in two directions, depending on which part of the form we're in. The first one we're doing rotating clockwise, and the second time we're rotating counterclockwise. The next step is going to be deflect. And so all we're doing is continuing the motion to here and then turning, continuing the turning so the bottom hand is up, the top hand is down. So you don't think about it in terms of play the lute, deflect. You're thinking of turning the lute, deflect. Very much. So one movement melds into the other, and that makes it easy to remember that when the hands are facing each other, the bottom hand is up and the top hand is down, right? Because you're just forming this circle and just turning the circle over to this position, like this. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. You're doing this, not this and this. Does that make sense? So one movement is turning into the other movement. If we do it right, when we learn it, we go 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's really a continuum, like a wave, okay? We can only get to that point when we get comfortable with it. So we learn it in steps, then we round the edges, and we just kind of try to meld everything together at a certain cadence or speed. It can be done slow, it can be done fast. People will say, oh, you're not supposed to do Tai Chi fast. That's not true. I do it as slow as I can sometimes, and then I do it as fast as I can sometimes. I get a different feeling. When you do it fast, you get a lot of what they call fa jing, F-A-J-I-N-G. Jing is energy, and I don't know what fa means, but fa jing is where you're driving energy through the movements, which would be kind of the way they would be used. What I mean by driving energy, I don't mean by opposing something with a lot of force. I mean by deflecting with a lot of force. And you can deflect with a lot of force using very little energy. Okay, so don't mistake doing something fast with being aggressive with respect to applying a force. That has nothing to do with that. It's done fast, but it's still done in a relaxed fashion, trying not to use any resistance with any of the moves as they apply to martial situations. All right, so we'll start at the beginning. Let's go through it again, just for review. We are sitting with our hands at our sides, feet on the ground, breathing, chin in, relax the shoulders, bringing the hands up, arms extended but not fully extended, bringing the hands in and down to the chest, to the waist, I mean. We push out, bring the hands in and open and close, breathing in and out. Single whip, turning the hands out, pushing out, leaning a bit to the right, looking left. Come up to the left, line up to the left, looking right. Why are we looking right? Because we're moving right. We want to look in the direction we're moving. Switching hands, up and down, One arm high near the head, the other down near the waist to dantian as we turn both hands by turning the waist, not the hands. Switch up and down. Turn to the left. Don't go too far. Stay within your, like a barrel around you. Think of this barrel shape around you. Working within this barrel. Turning. Look up, look through your hands. Breathe. And at some point, we scoop up with the lower hand. And as we turn, we bring that hand up and in, and we turn so that as we reach forward, the hands are opposing each other. So everything terminates at the same time to this position. So we're not doing this and this. We're doing one continual movement and open and close. Fresh knee right, setting up on the right, bring the left hand over, up near the right elbow, bring the right hand back, sweeping across as we turn at the waist and pull in and push out. And here we go, play the lute, turn the wheel, slowly. Imagine press it against something up here and up here. You're pressing against an elbow and a wrist. Remember, we might want to turn that over. Grab and turn it over. So you have to feel that connection between those two hands all the time, all right? So we're here, we're just going to turn, keep going, keep turning. We're going to pull this hand in and back. So it's going to come across and back slightly. This is an S shape as this hand comes in and out. It comes in and out because we're connecting with an arm and we need to get on the other side of that arm to deflect it. And so this hand comes in and that hand comes out. And these two motions are mirror images of each other. Now we're going to keep doing this, turning the hands over and go the other way. We can do this as many times as we want. Are you turning your waist? Why do you turn your waist? It adds more energy, allows you to push out further. At the same time, it reduces your body. I'm more vulnerable this way than I am this way, aren't I? I've got a smaller target this way than I do this way. So if I deflect this way, I'm still allowing myself to be exposed to an oncoming force. So I'm accomplishing three things, right? Putting more energy into it, reaching out further, and presenting a smaller target by turning at the waist. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Just little things make a big difference, right? When we get over to the right side, I'm going to make that fist here because I'm going to be ready to strike out. Now, when you strike out with this move, you want to punch with the eye of the fist up and the heart facing on the inside. All right. So it would look like we stop here, right? We make that fist, and as I come over, I'm gonna make a fist with this hand and bring the fist over like this, like a centurion, you know. I guess this was a salute of some sort, you know. So you're basically doing two things. You're winding up, cocking that wrist to punch, bringing this hand around to grab a wrist and pull it over, exposing that person's rib cage so you can punch under into the short ribs or up over into their face. All right. Terrible thing. All right. So we're here. And so I want you to do this movement, not like Paul Lamb says, where you make two fists and fold a fist over, that would not make any sense, right? If you're going to make a fist, you're making a fist because you're grabbing something, which is a wrist that's coming at you in the form of a punch, and you're pulling it over, turning that person so that you can attack either under or over. And so if you're going to use that method, you want to make that fist, at the same time bring this hand over and now make the fist a little bit later on, and then punch over or under. So think about what you're doing with your hands. You're doing this, right? Pulling it over. Not this and pulling it over. Got it? All right. Or if you prefer, you leave your hand open, make a fist, and parry with the hand open and across. So it's either this or this, and it's either this or this. Okay? So the application there is pretty obvious. What you're doing is pushing something aside or pulling something aside and over, and taking advantage of that person's energy coming at you to push it aside and let it go by, or to grab it and pull it over, thus uprooting that person and preparing them, or preparing you for the next step, which is to launch an attack, which could be a punch or could be a lot of other things. You could just, you could basically, well, there's a lot of things you can do. You can parry something over, right? And then you can bring your hands in and push somebody away. You don't have to strike them. You could grab, you could deflect here in this way and grab and turn sideways and use your elbow. But in this case, it's really, really what we're doing is this kind of thing. This or this. All right. So we follow that with something that this would be. So, so here comes a punch, I parry, I strike. Now here comes imagine here comes another force coming at you, and we go into a defensive mode. And that defensive mode is called calling block. All right, the hands are up here, not here, because we're protecting our face. And what we're doing is splitting the force aside. All right. So if you're here, your hands are already out here. Right. The next strike is probably going to be coming from the other person's. They may break that that hold, or after the parry, they kind of revitalize. What's the word? They reconnect emotionally, and now they have this other hand. The other hand is going to come and strike, right? And so parry, punch, and here comes another punch. We intercept the punch. It's coming this way by deflecting it aside. Can you imagine that? So so we're deflecting it aside. We're not pushing it aside. And I can't tell you how many classes I've had, and I've done this 100 times, and then I have people team up to do some exercises with each other to actually learn how to use this move. And inevitably, they'll do this. Because your body is telling you, get rid of it, push it aside. That doesn't work very well. It may work, but it takes a lot of energy. And if that force is coming at you really hard and fast, it's virtually impossible to push it aside like that. And if you are capable of doing it, you're probably going to break your wrist. It's much easier to deflect it. Can you see how it might be deflected? I'm going to see if I can give you an example of this. I'm going to use one hand. But here comes a punch, right? And all I'm doing is I want it, if it's coming at me this way, if I try to push it aside, it's connected to a big arm and a big shoulder and a big body. It's very hard to push it aside, but I have a better chance of deflecting it off to the right if I simply do this. And you can see it coming in this way, maybe a little better. If the force is coming at me this way, and I can't do it with two hands, I've got to hold this. But if I just deflect the force down, it'll go past me, see? And I still have my hands up here. I'm going to put this down. Doesn't matter whether it's right hand or left hand. Deflect the force past me. And hey, guess what? My hands are now ready to do what? Come down and push. So if I did this, it might work, but then to push, I'm going to have to bring this hand back in. And things are happening pretty fast. Our system has to be really efficient, more efficient than the other person's system, so you don't lose. And you're going to deflect by thinking of it like you're splitting something. That's the feeling. You're splitting, and as you split, the elbows go down. Now, here's a good example of elbows over knees. If you're doing this standing up, you're probably in this position, and you're deflecting the left elbow over the left knee, the right elbow over the right knee, down into the ground. It's almost impossible to break that structure. All right. And it gives you, you're using the ground to actually split. So the force isn't coming from your hands. Force is coming from the ground path, up through your body, through the core, into your arms, elbows down toward the knees. All right. Bringing the palms down and pushing out. And if we add a gentle rise to it, we add a little bit more energy, which is important if you weigh 124 pounds. It may not be that important if you weigh 250 pounds. If you're 250 pounds and you do this, well, you know, you're probably got the force of a gorilla going for you. All right, so that's good. All right. It's amazing how I end on time, you know, it's so like I don't even look at the clock. We have 1 minute left. Any questions? I know we're spending you know, I'm really drilling a lot of applications, but it's unlikely you will never get this anywhere else. And you can go back to doing it slow and in a meditative state, and it will be really even more powerful. Understanding the why you're doing things, then you can forget about it and you just go with a feeling, and that feeling is going to give you a lot of energy, which it won't unless you kind of go through this exercise of attaching functionality to the movement. I mean, that's how I feel about it. A lot of other people feel about it too, a lot of other teachers. But most teachers don't emphasize applications, probably because they haven't been taught and they just don't have a feeling for it. But I really believe that if you can integrate function, form and function, that they're synergistic and they help and they energize each other. And if you can do that, integrate form and function, the form will be better and it'll feel better. It'll just feel right. Okay. All right. That's the end. And once again, I've wasted another hour of your valuable time, but thank you for coming.
We're wasting it with you.